Hello, and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we have another installment of the New York Jets 2024 player previews. This is the 11th player preview episode of the series, and today we're going to break down two more Jets, one on offense and the other coming on defense, both coming in the trenches up front. Olu Fashanu on offense, and we will take a look at Micheal Clemons on defense. Before we begin today's episode of the New York Jets player previews, I want to quickly break down or tell you about our partners of the podcast, our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that delivers tickets from all over the internet and puts it into one place to make it easier for you, the buyer. What makes SeatGeek so great is they rate each ticket on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know what type of deal you are getting, so you know if you're paying the right price and getting the right deal and the good deal for the seats and the tickets you're looking at. Look for the green dots. Green means good. Those are the tickets you want to purchase. Plus, my viewers, click the link in the description down below. That'll take you, download the SeatGeek app, use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. This is tickets for any event, not just sports, not just football, plays, concerts, shows. If you can buy a ticket for an event, SeatGeek has it. Promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Also, Hugo House. You see me rocking my Hugo House hat all the time on the program. Aaron Rodgers also wears the Hugo House apparel all the time. Even Shane Gillis, Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Conklin, so many athletes and celebrities rock the Hugo House vintage inspired hats, myself included, although I wouldn't say I'm a celebrity. But either way, use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase at Hugo House. Click the link in the description down below. That'll take you to the Hugo House store, rather. And at checkout, use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. Gets to yourself some Hugo House swag. All right, now for today's New York Jets player preview episode number 11, and we are taking a look at two guys up front, the third-year Micheal Clemons and the rookie Olu Fashanu. We will start on offense with the rookie in Olu Fashanu, 6'6", 312 pounds. He is 21 years old. He will be 22 in December, so he is in his age 21-22 season as a rookie. He was the New York Jets 2024 first-round pick, 11th overall. Of course, the New York Jets traded back one spot with the Minnesota Vikings, who moved up to number 10. The Jets fell back to number 11 one spot later and took Olu Fashanu, the left tackle, out of Penn State, and he will now enter his rookie campaign for the New York Jets as a depth piece as of right now, but could definitely see the field this year. And, you know, the Olu Fashanu pick, you went into this year's draft class for the New York Jets and you were wondering, you know, what are they going to do? Are they going to go out and draft a Brock Bowers? Are they going to go out and add a playmaker? Are they going to draft a Fashanu? Are they going to maybe make a play for Joe Alt? Would they go after maybe a guy that's versatile like a Troy Fautanu or one of those guys? Would they trade up for a playmaker, a Roma Dunze, a Marvin Harrison, a Malik Neighbors? And, you know, everybody was kind of debating. There was a hot topic around who do they take, who do they select? And I think overall as a Jet fan, and I know we don't talk about camp much on this show, but through camp so far and since draft night, you know, in April, I think so far you've got to be really, really pleased with the pick that Joe Douglas made. I know some people felt you want the guy that could come in and play and would play, you know, would almost maybe start potentially, whether that would be a Roma Dunze or trading up for a Malik Neighbors, a guy to fit the window, as opposed to a guy in Olu Fashanu who probably won't show his true potential and play his full role until next season, 2025, assuming Tyron Smith's just a one-year rental for this all-in 2024 season. So I understood all that, but this was still the smarter pick. It wasn't the flashy pick. It wasn't the pick that is going to get national recognition, is going to get recognition from a playmaker perspective, but this was the smart pick for the New York Jets and a very good pick at that. Olu Fashanu will give you some of the numbers was excellent at Penn State. And the big, not really much a debate, but we always knew this. Joe Alt was the number one tackle in the draft in terms of overall number one tackle, run blocking, pass blocking, everything. But in terms of pure pass blocker, pure pass sets, the best, the most potential, one of the guys with the highest ceiling, you'd give that honor to Olu Fashanu. You can make a really strong case. This was the best pass blocker in this draft. Joe Alt was the best all-around blocker, all-around offensive tackle, but Fashanu was the best pass blocker to protect the quarterback blindside, and the Jets got him at number 11, and I think you've got to be fired up with that. And Olu Fashanu will enter his rookie year this year. We'll give you some of the numbers and his role and how many games he might actually play, because he is going to play. He is going to start games. As much of in a perfect world, we'd love to see Tyron Smith play all 17 games. It's not going to happen, because the last time that happened, I was about to say Joe name, Ryan Fitzpatrick was New York Jets quarterback. 2015, almost its entire decade has gone by. It has almost been 10 years rather, since Tyron Smith played the entire season. So Fashanu is going to play this year, but he has an awesome opportunity in front of him to learn behind Tyron Smith, a future Hall of Famer, a multi-time Pro Bowler, a multi-time All-Pro, NFL 2010 All-Decade team. One of the not just elite left tackles in the NFL still today, even at his age and even with some of his struggles staying healthy, still one of the elite left tackles today, but he's also a future Hall of Famer and one of the elite left tackles this game has ever seen. And for Olu Fashanu to be able to sit behind him and Morgan Moses as well, another veteran in the room, although from the other side, and we'll talk about Fashanu, maybe getting some reps at right tackle as well. We've seen it a couple days here at camp, but we'll get to that later. But in terms of learning behind Tyron Smith, it is an awesome, awesome opportunity. He will play a role this year, high-end depth at left tackle. For Tyron Smith misses time, which will 99% happen, Fashanu will probably play in 3 to 5 games this year. And that's huge. And in those 3 to 5 games, you, as a Jets fan, would much rather trust him over anybody else. First round pick, an elite left tackle, and hopefully your left tackle of the future. Ideally, with this draft pick, the Jets found themselves their left tackle of the future, their next to Brickashaw Ferguson for the next 10 to 15 years. When you look at some of the numbers, 2023 PFF grade 78.8. Some of the other numbers, though, are even more impressive. In 2023 last season, he had 328 pass block snaps. He allowed no sacks. His 2022 and 2023 PFF ranked him in the 97th percentile in pass block grade in true pass sets. That was an 82.6 grade. So it was 97th percentile in all of college football over 2 seasons with an 82.6 pass blocking grade in true pass sets in college football. So just right there shows you how elite he was from a pass blocking standpoint. He also did not allow a quarterback hit as well last season in those 328 pass blocking snaps. On top of that, his 3 years at Penn State, in his career, he allowed just a 1.1% pressure rate, and his blown block rate was third lowest in college football through his 3 years in 2021, 2022, and 2023. So since 2021 in the FBS, Olu Fashanu's blown block rate was third lowest in college football. So pressure rate low blown block rate, 97th percentile in true pass sets, grading wise, no sacks allowed last season, and in 1,258 career snaps, around 700 of those coming from a pass blocking standpoint, allowed 1 quarterback hit in 3 seasons. And depending on which statistics and which sites you look at, whether you're a ESPN stats and info guy or more of a PFF guy, some say he never allowed a sack. Some say he allowed a sack. PFF never logged him at allowing a sack in his 3 years at college football. ESPN stats and info did. So what other analytical site you look at will depend on whether or not Olu Fashanu allowed a sack during his collegiate career. So for this, we'll say he never allowed a sack because he's a Jet, and we're going to, boost him up a little bit there. But in all seriousness, though, one quarterback hit in 1,258 career snaps, around 700 of those coming at passing, is extremely impressive. And didn't make many mistakes, was almost perfect during his college career. And again, the run blocking's not as strong, but really solid run blocker in terms of getting to the second level. He's a solid run blocker. It's not and his passing is obviously his dominant. That's what he's elite at. That's why he got drafted as high as he did. And that's what you want out of your left tackle. You want him to be more of a pass blocking, pass protection expert or pass protection elite type of player, because he's protecting the quarterback's blind side in most cases, especially in this case with Rodgers, a guy who's coming off of course, a major injury. You need to keep him upright. But he has a very strong ability, has a very good ability to get to the second level. And that's something that the New York Jets as a whole, I've previewed every offensive lineman so far except Tyron Smith. We'll get to him in a later episode, of course, but previewing all four of the New York Jets starting offensive linemen, or four of the five New York Jets starting offensive linemen, and now Olu Fashanu, of course, backup at left tackle. All of them are very good at getting to the second level, downhill blockers. And that really fits what the Jets are going to try and do this year from a running standpoint, from a run scheme standpoint. Getting to the second level, downhill. Moses very good. Fashanu's very good. AVT can get downhill. John Simpson can get downhill. So a lot of guys that just fit the scheme, fit the system, and will be really, really fun to watch these running backs run behind not only Fashanu, because he's going to play, but some of these other guys as well, including AVT, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, those guys that are just downhill, lower, head down, downhill, just maulers in the run game. So very fired up to see Olu Fashanu. And even here the last couple of days at camp, I don't talk about camp a ton on these episodes. We're more kind of projecting and going off of what they did last year, but he has gotten some reps at right tackle. So potentially can fill in both right tackle and left tackle. But look, I think Fashanu this season, he's going to play, because it would be, if Tyron Smith plays 13, 14 games, that's a huge, huge positive. If he get 13, 14 games out of Tyron Smith this year and he's healthy for the playoffs, which by the way, he's never missed a playoff game in his career. If that's what it is, that's a positive. And then, hey, Olu Fashanu goes out there and plays 3-4 games that he misses. You can trust him to step up in a big way. So really fired up, not only what Fashanu can do this year when he plays, if he plays, most likely that'll be the case, but also moving forward, you hope this is a guy that we are previewing for a very long time as the New York Jets' future and cornerstone at left tackle. Olu Fashanu, the 11th overall pick. All right, so that is Olu Fashanu. Now we will move on to Micheal Clemons. And I don't want to come off overly negative here, but very fired up for Olu Fashanu. I don't share exactly the same excitement for Micheal Clemons, but let's break them down here and get into some of the numbers and some of my other thoughts and really project and preview and all that good stuff on the edge rusher for the New York Jets here. 6'5", 263 pounds, 26 years old, although he'll be 27 exactly 7 days, pretty much a week from now. So a week from today, next Wednesday, he will be 27 years old. So entering his age 27 season, 2022 fourth round pick, 117th overall out of Texas A&M, of course, selected by the New York Jets, has spent each of his first two seasons, of course, here in the Big Apple with the Jets, playing 32 games, 16 in his rookie year and 16 last year. Micheal Clemons is a really, really interesting player. And I don't know if I want to call him a frustrating player, but just a guy that you would like to see more of. You expected more of going into last year, and you feel like he's got potential, but he just hasn't shown it. And it just feels like you're kind of wondering when he's actually going to break out. Because I remember previewing Micheal Clemons last season and having a lot of excitement around what he could do with the New York Jets defensive line room. Because he had a solid rookie season, a really productive rookie season, and we'll break down his rookie season and all that stuff soon. Had a solid rookie season and was all right, was solid, showed you some positives, will give you some of the numbers, was good. But I think what really got people excited about Micheal Clemons going into last year was he bulked up. He put on some weight. He put on some size. So much credit goes for him for doing that. Knows, you know what? If I want to make an impact on this roster If I want to make an impact with the Jets, stay around with the Jets a long time, bulk up, let me play inside, let me play outside because it's a very crowded edge room. Bulks up, does all that, says, you know what, play inside, can play outside. All this excitement going into, not a ton of excitement. It's like not like we were saying Micheal Clemons would be a all-pro, but thought he could be a really, really solid rotational piece for the New York Jets last year, and he really didn't do a whole lot. He really didn't. In fact, he regressed in pretty much every single statistical category. And that's kind of concerning going into 2024, especially with the way the Jets defensive line room now looks after an offseason of letting Bryce Huff walk, trading JFM, and now you've got chaos with Hassan Reddick requesting a trade. And now Micheal Clemons goes into this year. Let's say hypothetically Reddick does hold out. And again, I don't want to talk too much about camp and talk too much about hypotheticals, but he's going to play a much bigger role than he probably should and we probably expected. And it feels like the Jets might be relying a little bit too much on him to do so. Now, you look at some of his rookie year numbers going back here. He wasn't the best in pass rush ranking-wise. But when you compare his rookie year numbers, right, for a fourth-round pick, he wasn't terrible. It wasn't awful. For a rotational guy that didn't play a whole lot, he wasn't terrible. He only played 25% of the snaps, or 29% of the snaps in 2020. Or 2022, rather. Under 30% of the snaps his rookie year. In those 29% of the snaps, he ranked 40th percentile in pass rush win rate, 11.5%, and 35th percentile in pressure rate, 9%. Both of those not great, right? Not even above 50th percentile, below average when you look at those rankings. However, he was good against the run. 4 tackles for loss, 6.5 stuffs in 29% of the snaps played. 301 snaps total defensively last year. He bulked up. He was originally 6'5", 270. Or that's where he was, rather. That's where he is now, I should say. 260, 270. So you look at those numbers, they're not great, but they at least show some promise. Now you look at this year, his pressure rate went from, or this past season, rather, his pressure rate went from 9% down to 5.2% in 2023. So it dropped almost 4%. And he played more snaps. So he actually, in a way, and I guess you could say, oh, well, he took more advantage of his opportunities in 2022, less snaps. If you gave him more snaps, the pressure rate probably would have dropped off. I guess, but, more snaps could be a bad thing. But either way, or if you get what I'm saying, like if you rush the pass, like if you rush the guy, if you get one snap and you sack him, pressure rate, perfect pressure rate, a sack per snap, pretty much. If you rush him again, then 1 for 2 as opposed to 1 to 1, if or 1 for 1, if that makes sense. So sometimes more snaps could decrease your numbers in terms of less snaps if you make the most of your opportunity. But either way, he played 35% of snaps, so he played 6% more snaps this year. He was under 30% last year, played 35% this year, and his pressure rate went down 4%. You look at some of the other numbers that dropped. His 2022 PFF grade, I know PFF's not the end-all be-all, but this is a significant drop. 78.7 in 2022. 2023, it dropped down to 65.9, which is ugly. Very ugly. 2022, 2.5 sacks. 2023, half a sack. 2022, he had 4 tackles for loss. Last year, 2 tackles for loss. So what was a strength of his in terms of he was actually good against the run in 2022? He also regressed against the run in 2023. 2022, his rookie season, 6 quarterback hits. Last year, only 1 quarterback hit. That is extremely disappointing. And tackles as well. 36 his rookie year, dropped down to 27 last year. Talk about the pressure rate going from 9 down to 5, and the snaps increased. So more snaps, more playing time, the numbers decreased, and he was actually less of a factor. And that's concerning going into year number 3. You would like to see a guy put together kind of for a 4th round pick, playing more of a rotational depth developmental role, only playing 29% of the snaps, showing you some positive things. You would like to see that jump continue in year 2, and then ideally take a pretty sizable jump in year 3 as well, continue to get better. He regressed in a massive, massive way, and now it leaves you with a bunch of questions for 2023, especially with the situation the Jets find themselves in now. Another thing, too, that he showed, I thought, more of in 2023 was, or 2022 was, he was able to beat tight ends a lot against the run with his long arms and is very explosive in his power. You saw a lot. He was able to overpower tight ends with his athleticism, his long arms, his size. He's 6'5". He's got a very interesting build for a edge rusher. But he utilized it to he utilized it in a really positive way. Like he took advantage of it in terms of his ability to kind of just outpower guys and just beat him with his speed, beat him with his athleticism. And you just didn't see that a lot last year. He kind of just dropped off. And now this season, let's say Reddick doesn't play hypothetically, you're looking at Clemons as your 3rd edge rusher, potentially your 2nd. But you're looking at him right behind Will McDonald. For a guy that put up those numbers in 35% of the snaps, if you're relying on him to potentially start, potentially play opposite Jermaine Johnson at times, and put up anywhere near the pass rushing ability that we've seen from Jets edge rushers in the past couple seasons, that's a serious, serious concern. It's a guy that in 2 years, he's played 32 games in his NFL career. He's got 63 tackles and 3 sacks. 3 sacks. I know sacks aren't the end-all, be-all, but when you see the pressure rate drop significantly and the sacks still aren't there, it's a concern. So I don't want to sound too negative. I don't want to be too harsh. Micheal Clemons is a guy that gives off a very dangerous, tough guy vibe, holding the bat coming into camp last year, if you remember, but he gives off this very scary vibe, but hasn't really put it fully onto the field. Some of the off the field stuff, if you remember him with the Browns fans on Thursday night, he got into it with the Bills as well in the tunnel. It feels like he at times he does a lot off the field. He kind of shows he does a lot of other stuff, but not a whole lot of production, if that makes sense. Doesn't really back a ton of it up. And I think the Jets, in a way, are putting a little too much trust in him. Prove me wrong. Go out there and put up, 6 sacks this season. And his pressure rate, maybe, let's say, creep above. It was 11, it was 9% in 2020. Let's see that pressure rate get into the 67. Let's say that pressure rate maybe gets into the 65, 70 percentile where he's above average. Not elite, not great, but above average. And that pass rush win rate as well go from 11.5%, higher up to maybe the 55, 60th percentile where he's above average. And maybe he gets 5, 6 sacks. That'd be great, but I just don't see it. For a guy that regressed significantly last year and at times was a non-factor. And even his rookie year, he showed you some. He didn't show you a lot. It's not like he had a stellar rookie year. You really can't hang your hat on anything with Micheal Clemons. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope the role he's in this year, a lot of it depends on Haason Reddick, but he's definitely a very kind of a questionable player in terms of what you're going to get out of him this season. And that's a concern. So that is your New York Jets 2024 player preview, episode number 11. Olu Fashanu and Micheal Clemons. Let me know what you think about both these players in the comment section down below. And until next time, as always, JETS, 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 Jets.